All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us for this special virtual escape on the famous Venice Carnival. We will start in just a few minutes. So in the meantime, exactly like Lisa did, let us know where you're tuning in from in the chat. And to those of you joining us on Facebook, welcome. We are so happy to have you. Please let us know where you are watching from. All right, Lisa from North Carolina, welcome. Yvonne from Cape Cod, hello. Linda and Paul, welcome. Teresa from New York, Nancy from Texas, perfect. We have Judy and Ella from Maryland. All right, everybody, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're gonna start in just a few minutes. Yes, we have some friends joining us from Canada, Diane, Lori, and Maria Paz, welcome. Frank and Marion from Tennessee, welcome. Wonderful. All right, I think we can go ahead and get the show on the road. Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Claudia and I am from the Go Ahead Boston office. For today's travel talk, we are virtually traveling to Venice to learn more about the origin of the Venice Carnival and how people celebrate it in the present. We are joined by local expert tour director Linda, live from Italia. She's here to share her stories and expertise with you all and will introduce herself in just a moment. Now, the plan today is to walk through some webinar tips so you can maximize your time with us. Then our beloved tour director will take it away and tell you all you need to know about the carnival while sharing her insights and stories. And then we will answer some of your questions during the Q&A portion of this webinar. If this is your first webinar, welcome. We're so excited to have you here. Unlike a normal video call, your cameras and microphones are completely turned off. You will only see and hear me, your host, and our tour director. We can't see you and we can't hear you, but of course we want to hear from you. So throughout this travel talk, please feel welcome to use the chat box to interact with each other and the Q&A box to pose questions to our speaker. If you're joining us on Facebook, you can use the comment box there to ask your questions during the Q&A. All right, let's jump right in. Everybody, let's buckle our seatbelts. We are getting on the Go Ahead airplane and virtually traveling to Venice. Now, there's a famous Italian phrase that goes around in Venice during the month of February. A carnevale ogni scherzo vale, which translates to anything goes at carnival time. And this Venetian saying perfectly encapsulates the freedom and the excitement of this time of year in the city. Any joke, trick, or oddity is allowed during Carnival, which reflects the fact that it originated as a ritual that relied on role reversal. These festivities aimed at disrupting social roles and norms. The poor could play the rich, the married could play the single, and the citizens of Venice could cast off their true identities in search of boundless pleasure. When you're hidden behind a mask at Carnival, the world becomes your playground. Now, I'd like to introduce your wonderful speaker for today, Linda. Linda, would you be so kind to introduce yourself to the audience?
Absolutely. Thank you, Claudia. Thank you for having me here. And thank you, everybody, for joining us for this event. I'm Linda. I'm a tour director with the EF Go Ahead Tour. I've been here for quite a number of years. And when I participated to the Venetian Carnival myself, when I was a young girl, I actually played the role reversal and I dressed as a man.
Wonderful. Now, some of you might not be familiar with Venice's location. So Linda, can you tell us more about where Venice is located and then walk us through a map of Venice?
Absolutely. Venice, as you can see from the map of Italy, is in the very north of Italy. The region around it is called Veneto. To the most, it is known as the Venetian region. It is on the Adriatic Sea, although Venice is not on the seashore. It is on the Venetian lagoon. As you can see, it is very close to the Alps and very close to the borders to Slovenia, to Eastern Europe. It is the perfect place for trade, and that was the fortune of Venice for many, many centuries. And if we have a look at the actual map of Venice, look at this. Venice looks like a fish, doesn't it to you? It is a fish that once swam into the Venetian lagoon. The lagoon is imagine a raised platform in the Adriatic Sea that with time covered with water, a sort of hardened stage. On this stage, Venice played its history. Now, just like a fish, it is attached to the mainland by means of a bridge, which is a railroad and a road. The railway arrived in the 1800s and the road actually joined in the 1930s. And that's how you reach Venice. Then, for the most part, you will have to navigate the city and walk on foot.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Now let's begin with the history of the Venice Carnival. Linda.
Well, the history of Venice Carnival. Nowadays, when we think of the Venetian Carnival, we think of this unique event, which is so different than all the other carnivals, the ones in South America, the ones in America, the ones in the rest of Europe, South Africa. But back in the old days, all of this originated pretty much in the same way this type of festivities originated in the rest of the world. So if we go back to the ancient times, even the Romans celebrated at this specific time of the year. It was a joyful moment because it marked the passing from the dark, a kind of hard season of the winter into a new season of rebirth, reopening, a joyful moment of life. And in that joyful moment, even in the Roman times, everything was allowed. But Carnival itself, as it is nowadays, it's linked to religion. So, for example, in the first document that actually appeared in Venice, this document dates back to 1094, and it is the same year of the finding of the body of Saint Mark. Well, in those days, the Doge was the ruler of Venice, and Venice was called the Serenissima Republic, a place of wealth and power, a place where everybody lived happily. Well, the Doge granted the right to participate in celebration preceding Lent. Lent was a moment of restriction, so this is the very last moment when everything was allowed. With time and across the Middle Ages, of course, stricter rules came into place, stricter rules, religious rules. So Carnival was confined to a specific time period. And that time period was between Christmas and Ash Wednesday. And it was specifically related to that time period. So things were more linked to religion. But have you ever wondered why we say Fat Thursday? Well, it goes back to 1162. Why do we celebrate Fat Thursday? Because in Venice, the Serenissima Republic had established in this date a remembrance day for the victory of the Doge. The name of that Doge was Michael II over the Patriarch of Aquileia, because this man had invaded and even conquered some of the Venetian territories. Eventually, the Venetians won back, and this started as the celebration of that victory. The first document that actually talks about the Venetian Carnival being a public feast goes back to 1296. But the real golden age of the Venetian Carnival is the 1700s. That is the golden century. That's when the Venetian Carnival got famous all over Europe. Unfortunately, things changed. In 1797, after the occupation by Napoleon and followed by the occupation of the Austrians, the Venetians did not publicly celebrate Carnival any longer because of the fear of riots. but it stayed in their spirit. Therefore, in 1979, it was a good idea that the Opera House of Venice, La Fenice, together with the Biennale Art Institution of Venice, the good idea was that of reinstating the Venetian Carnival, inspired by the 1700s. They created the feast that we can all enjoy today. Now, when you say carnival, you say mask. When you say Venice, you say mask. And that's why we have this beautiful image here. We started with the history and now we tell you what it is, the real carnival. This on the left-hand side of the screen are actually the two most typical Venetian masks. Of course, things evolved, they became fancier, they were added with the very rich culture of the following centuries. But these are the two Venetian masks of the tradition. The male is wearing a bauta, which is a black cape or cloak that is called tabarro, a black hat that is called tricorno, and a white mask that is called larva. Larva in Venetian means ghost, mask. And the girl, the lady, is wearing a beautiful dress with a generous décolleté. You could do that because your identity was protected by the mask, and she's wearing a moretta. Moretta, the word moro in Italian means Moorish, dark. Why is that? Because the actual mask is made of black velvet. Now, there is a curiosity about this mask. The female mask is not held by laces. So the only way women could keep it against their face was by biting into a button that is at the back of the mask, more or less at the same level of the mouth. That's why it's nicknamed the silent mask, because women wearing it had to stay silent. And now, let's have a look at some of the old traditions. You know, nowadays, the carnival celebrations are made of many events, but some events that are historical don't happen anymore. For example, this one, look at this image. What you see is a human pyramid. Well, this goes back to the history of Venice. In Venice, there were two communities, the Nicolotti and the Castellani. Now, these two communities lived in two specific areas of the city, and they often argued. These arguments, eternal arguments, very often ended up in true fights, fights that took place on some of the bridges of the city of Venice. One specifically that did not have protections was their favorite, because you could definitely and easily actually throw your enemy into the water. Now, the Castellani is one group of people, mainly workers of the arsenal. They lived in the eastern part of the city of Venice, while the Nicolotti, mainly fishermen, lived in the western part of the city. What happened was that during the feast of Fat Thursday, the Nicolotti and the Castellani celebrated their eternal disagreement, but they did it in a very unique way. They staged an event called Le Forze di Ercole, which is an exercise of strength, of balance, of courage. Human pyramids, sometimes built on water, reached impressive heights. As many as 12 men were involved in these human pyramids. But let's see a little bit more about the Venetian masks. Look at this image. This image gives me the possibility of saying something about the contemporary carnival. The contemporary carnival is fascinating, is elegant, is colorful, is beautiful, but it's kind of distant from the very original medieval carnival. This one that we celebrate nowadays is mostly inspired to that century that was the 1700s. That's why you see these beautiful costumes that make everybody feel like royalty. Now, if we go to another moment, another part of the Venetian masks, we have to name Commedia dell'arte. Commedia dell'arte is a form of theater, careful, not simply theater, professional theater. And in Venice, it actually happened for a very long time and was then totally reformed by a Venetian whose name is Carlo Goldoni. Carlo Goldoni is the Shakespeare of Italy. For us, he is the playwright. And Carlo Goldoni in his comedies actually introduced all these characters. So the masks of the Commedia dell'arte are not simply masks, they're also characters. For example, this one, you see the man in his checkered costume, he is Harlequin. Harlequin is actually a Lombard mask from the area around Milan. He's this typical servant, kind of smart, sometimes ruining the plans of his master, always after his beloved one, who is Colombina, another servant, the female Colombina. So the masks, the costumes of Commedia dell'arte became part of what is nowadays the Carnival of Venice. And
Linda, actually, before we continue, we have two questions. One is a pre-submitted question from Sandra, and she's wondering, when is the carnival this year and how can she attend?
Okay, Sandra, carnival this year, we have the dates. 12th of February, that's when it starts, and it ends on the 1st of March. We're very happy because this year is a moment where a lot of the events that could not take place in the last couple of years will actually be happening. So it's a very exciting moment. How can you attend? You just have to catch a flight, come over.
And then the next question is from Anthony, and Anthony's wondering if you said Fat Tuesday or Fat Thursday or both.
Thursday, sorry.
Thursday.
Probably.
Perfect. All right. Perfect. Thank you. Now let's continue.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about the local celebrations and traditions during Carnival.
Well, at Carnival, there are many events, many celebrations. A lot takes place around the city of Venice. For example, one of the things that happens to you if you are in that period of time in the city of Venice is that of walking around the streets and encountering someone who is dressed exactly like the people we'll see in the next picture. And you will find them in the narrow alleyways. You will actually meet them, and you will be immediately caught by the very colorful costumes that they are wearing. They are wearing a mask, they walk silently, very gracefully, and you don't even have to ask. You just pull out your camera or your phone and they will gladly pose with you for a picture. These are the Venetian masks. Everybody's wearing a mask. But then you also have some spectacular events like this one. This is the Flight of the Angel. And the Sunday, this event takes place in St. Mark's Square. Well, in reality, this event has historical roots. It goes back to a moment in the 16th century when a young Turkish acrobat was able to reach the bell tower of St. Mark by only using a barbell. He walked on a rope tied to a boat anchored in the pier in the nearby Piazzetta of St. Mark. Now you see the Campanile right there. The Piazzetta would be to the right-hand side of the Campanile, the bell tower, and the Piazzetta overlooks the water. So imagine this rope was tied to a boat. When he passed by the balcony of the Doge, the ruler, he paid homage to the Doge. That's why that event became a regular. Every year it took place, and it was called Svolo del Turco. Svolo in Venetian language means the flight. Turco of the Turkish. Unfortunately, in 1759, a tragic event happened. One of the acrobats fell on the ground, fell on the crowd actually, and that's why they decided to that this event would not take place in this way any longer. They replaced the flight of an acrobat with the flight of a wooden bird, a dove. And in Italian, we call dove colomba. That's why the name of the event became Volo della Colombina, the flight of the Colombina. Now, the wooden bird would actually fly down into the square and scatter confetti and flowers over the people. But in 2001, they had an idea. Let's do things as they used to do. So they reintroduced the Flight of the Angel. This time it was a female. It was a professional female acrobat, and she entertained the crowds with this very incredible moment. But in 2011, things changed once again, but I'm not going to tell you now. I'm going to tell you later, because I'm going to show you the event that actually leads to this one. Now, we also have lots of things that happen on the water in Venice. In Venice, we have the Festival of the Water, as well as the regatta. Let's see one after the other. We have beautiful and colorful pictures for you. The Festival of the Water, for years now, on the first day of Carnival, the festival is held on the waterway called Rio di Cannareggio, between two bridges, Ponte dei Tre Archi and Ponte delle Guglie. Here you see beautifully decorated boats that actually are animated by acrobats and accompanied by music. And it is recommended to arrive early for this one, because the crowds push towards the Rio di Cannareggio. So if you arrive too late and you see the crowds in front of you, give up. Walk somewhere else, because otherwise you miss everything, because at that point there is no way you can break through the crowds. The regatta instead, for the opening of the carnival. The day after, in the morning, there is a traditional regatta. It opens the carnival at 11 a.m. A procession of boats decorated for the occasion starts from Punta della Dogana and passes through the Grand Canal and reaches the bridge, the Guglie and the bridge of Tre Archi in Cannareggio. At the arrival, the feast starts. All of the stands with food, wine, the typical food products for Carnival, they open and they offer their food to the public. This is the real core of the beginning of the celebration. So when you look at these pictures, you see the boats, but now we're also going to show you some amazing things staged in a very theatrical way. Look at this. I said that some of the elements of this water shows are also acrobats, but also incredible staging machinery that is set up for the occasion. For example, in the next picture, look at this acrobat standing on this platform in the water like a floating acrobat. Isn't that amazing? Now, see this with the lights of Venice, with the atmosphere of Venice at night. Isn't this an amazing way of opening up to the new season? And then we have the event of the events, the top. This is the top of the line. You gotta invest a little bit of money for this. It's a masquerade, it's a ball. It takes place in hotels or in some of the palaces of along the canal. It's a private event. You can book it in two different ways. You can actually book the full event, which is a dinner and the event afterwards, the ball, or just the ball. In any case, I'm afraid you're gonna spend some money, because I know that the rates a couple of years ago for the full event were like 800 euros, and the one just for the entertainment after dinner was 500. On top of that, you have to have your costume, and you have seen what types of costumes I was talking about, and you will see in the next few images. So there is a little bit of investment here to be made.
Linda, I would love to attend a Venetian ball one day. They look incredibly glamorous. I think I might just add it to my travel bucket list. Now, let's talk about the different costumes and masks that locals sport during the event.
Yes, absolutely. Well, you know, any woman who would like to attend one of those private events, one of the dreams is for one day to be like a princess of the old days, because these costumes make you feel like that. They are incredibly intricate, very well crafted, colorful, with incredibly fine material, mostly inspired by the fashion culture of the 18th century. It was a century that probably marked the beginning of the Venetian decay in terms of economy and power. The Serenissima Republic was coming to an end. But this did not really reflect on the high society, on the aristocracy. They still did things their own way, the Venetian way. And the Venetian way was the most fashionable one. And these costumes reflect that kind of mentality. Now, look, this is, for example, these are the elements of a costume. These are the masks. Imagine that walking down the alleys of Venice, you would meet the masks and you would go, "Buongiorno, signora maschera," which means in Italian, in Venetian, it means "good morning, Madam Mask." They're living people. The mask is an important thing, the most important element of a costume, because it protects you. It gives you the illusion. In the Venetian culture, the term mask was used to indicate the activity of putting on a false beard or mustache. And the mask was also the nickname given to women who disguised themselves as men and men who disguised themselves as women. So the mask became the symbol of this carnival transgression. When you look at the other images of the Venetian masks, you also need to know that one of the opening events of the Venetian Carnival is the Parade of Masks. Nowadays, it takes place in St. Mark. There is also the election of the most beautiful mask of the year. But back in the old days, the parade, the opening parade, took place in an area called Liston. And that's why Liston was the opening moment, the parade of all the masks. That's when you show yourself to the rest of Venice, and everybody inquires, who are they? Like this couple, imagine there is a story behind them. You don't know who they are. They're going to one of those places that opened only a carnival back in the old days, where gambling was allowed. Gambling was a forbidden activity in Venice. The Serenissima did not allow it, but a carnival, you could. But you had to enter these very selected places by wearing a mask and hiding your identity. The only one who could show his identity was the croupier. The croupier was normally an aristocrat who had lost his fortune and fame. Therefore, his identity did not need to be protected. Look how beautiful are these masks. Some are very colorful, some they have a very plain color scheme, but the decorations are incredible. And in the traditional way, they're all made by hand, but we'll see it later on in one of the next pictures that we'll show you. Look at the elements, the feathers, the fans, everything is taken care of. A Venetian mask is a pure moment of theater.
So now that you know exactly what attendees wear, let's talk about some of the events visitors can attend during Carnival.
Okay, sure. So let's talk about the first one. What do you think? We're going to talk about the one that we're showing you on screen on the next picture, La Festa delle Marie, the Feast of the Marie, the Mary. Well, who are they? Girls. This is an important event. It is a feast where you have a procession in historical costumes that leaves from San Pietro di Castello at 2:30 p.m. and reaches Via Garibaldi on Riva degli Schiavoni, very close to St. Mark, and then St. Mark Square. Once in St. Mark, the girls get on stage for the presentation to the public. The Marie back in the old days were 12 girls chosen, still nowadays chosen amongst the Venetian citizens, but back in the old days, it was the Doge that actually gave to 12 beautiful Venetian maidens born in humble conditions a dowry for them to get married. So that is the historical event behind this one. Nowadays, in addition to the historical parade, the event includes a real beauty contest with the proclamation of the beautiful Mary of the year. And look what happens to the beautiful Mary of the year. The beautiful Mary of the year since 2011 will be the next one, the following year, to fly over St. Mark. If it was me, I'd probably look elegant and still, just because I would be fainted at this point. I could never do this. I'd probably pass it on to someone else. So the Flight of the Angel and the Feast of the Maria, the exclusive parties, as I said, hotels, palaces. You just have to check the official calendar that is published every year about the Venetian Carnival, and you will find out where the exclusive parties take place. And once you find out, then you need to start preparing. A mask making workshop. That is something that is absolutely amazing attending. The history of masks in Venice, mystery, enigma, seduction, it's all part of the enjoyment of the essence of the carnival. In order to learn everything about mask making, you really need to go into a workshop, one of those traditional ones. It doesn't matter if you don't want to spend that much money to buy one of the most finely crafted masks, but you have to see how they're made. The history of Venetian masks dates back to 1268, the year in which the oldest law limiting the improper use of masks dates back. In this document, it was forbidden for men in masks to play the game called ova. Ova is eggs, and they were throwing them. They were throwing eggs filled with rose water at the ladies walking down the alleys. So that's when we actually, in these old documents, that's when we actually learn that masks were always part of the culture of this city, actually. And then there is the last and incredible event closing the carnival. The Svolo del Leon. Svolo, remember, the flight. Del Leon, the lion. What is the lion? It's the winged lion of the Serenissima Republic, depicted on the giant flag. It is that giant flag that will fly over and close the carnival celebrations.
Now, all those events look wonderful, Linda. But before we continue, we got another pre-submitted question. This is from Michelle, and Michelle is wondering if the events are free.
Well, the public events are free. Yes, you will spend the money, of course, for the food or any of the masks and costumes you might want to actually be wearing. And the ones that we talked about, the exclusive parties, then I already gave you the rates. So no, they're not free. There is quite a bit of investment there.
And Linda, an additional question from Katie, and Katie's wondering, is there an additional cost to attend a carnival, or you just pay for some of those more glamorous events?
You pay for the more glamorous events. Any event on the side that you want to participate, other than the public feast, you pay for, of course.
All right, great. Now let's move on to our next section on how to prepare for the Venice Carnival for when you attend.
Absolutely. How to prepare. First of all, you have to make sure that you have the most important elements of the carnival, the mask and the costume. And then you just have to make your reservation to come over. So how to prepare? Let's move on with no further ado. Let's show them one of the most famous mask workshops of Venice. This place is called Cartaruga Atelier, Mask Atelier. These people don't simply produce masks from Venice, for Carnival. They produce masks for film productions, for theater productions. They are the ones who actually supply the masks for Eyes Wide Shut, the movie. They are incredibly famous and incredibly good at what they do. And I'm sure that, Claudia, we have a video where we can show them a maestro, a craftsman who is working on a mask. Now, while you look at the image, I can tell you that the artisans who made masks were called maschereri since the time of the Doge Foscari. And they had their own statute, their own code of rules, which is dated April 1436. They belong to the fringe painters and were helped in their profession by the Targheri, who actually painted faces on the shell of the mask. The production of masks intensified throughout the centuries. In 1773, there were officially 12 mask stores in the city of Venice. Not many, if you consider the use that was made in those years. But the demand for masks grew more and more, and masks began to be made off the books, providing work to many people and managing, who could actually manage to the intensification of this production and distribution throughout Europe. The masks were and still are made of paper mache. And different models were produced in different colors, decorated in different ways with gems, feathers, fabric, ribbons, everything you have seen in the pictures so far. And then the costume. We're going to start with this picture because we want to show you a place where you can go to get a costume. This is an atelier. It's called Nicolao, and you actually go there if you want to buy your costume, have it custom made for you maybe, or rent. So if you actually go to one of those exclusive events, what you want to do is plan for your costume. You can rent it, but you still have to get in touch with one of these ateliers. Look how incredible these costumes are. Look at the fabrics in the back of the craftsman, of the tailor, and look how every detail is handmade. If you look at the picture of the two models on the right-hand side, you see how incredibly intricate the decoration, the embroidery on these costumes are. It's not just done here to show you the best of. This is the way they are in reality. And walking down the streets of Venice on the days of Carnival, you will enjoy these incredible skills of the Venetians in crafting these incredible costumes. Also, the shoes are works of art. They are so unusual. Look at this girl. She is trying her costume on, and there are 3 people working around her because everything will be custom made. Probably she has an amazing event to attend, so she will have invested a lot of money and she will want the best for herself. So a mask and a costume, those are the 2 elements. When you book one of those balls, one of those parties, they tell you strict dress code, wearing a costume and a mask.
Linda, now we have another pre-submitted question from Marcus, and Marcus is wondering where can he get his hands on an affordable costume?
Oh, well, I have to say this. I think you can buy anything on Amazon these days, although I cannot guarantee the quality. I would say that if I were from the other side of the world, I would probably go on the event calendar, official event calendar. I would get in touch with one of the ateliers and see the options that I have. But I'm afraid that at one point you will have to try it on. So you probably will have to plan on getting there a little bit ahead of time to make sure. But of course, you can buy affordable costumes also in Venice. I mean, they will not be anything fine as you have seen on the pictures, but they will still give you your carnival experience.
Perfect. Now we have 2 more questions related to costumes. And the first one is from Myra, and she's wondering, what are the common types of feathers that they place on the masks?
I really don't know the type of feathers, although I have to say that these days there is a high concern about being very respectful of animals. So I'm guessing that they are producing a lot of stuff that is artificial, actually.
Right. We have another question that reads, astonishingly beautiful costumes. Curious what a typical costume like this would cost. Guessing it's far more than an American wedding gown.
I can tell you. I can tell you what happened once. My aunt lived in Venice, and she worked in a very important job, government job. And one day she was invited to one of these events. Now, I was little. But back in those days, she told my mom that she had paid for a costume, the equivalent of what nowadays would be 1500s. Now, if I consider that the cost of living has increased terribly since those days, then I would say, yeah, if you have it custom made, you can spend a fortune.
Yes. And then we have an additional question asking about how more or less, what is the cost to rent a costume? I think last time, Linda, that I checked, it can run from 150 euros to 500 per day.
Yeah. Generally, people wear they literally rent it just for the event, and the next morning they run back to get it back to the store because it's really expensive. Yeah.
Great. And now if you are located in Venice at the time, you can also purchase your mask there, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, masks nowadays, don't be afraid of the fact that you find any type of quality. It is a little bit the great thing about the modern world. If you cannot afford to buy the real stuff or the very expensive stuff, you can still get a beautifully decorated mask that is made with simpler materials. And they are widely available throughout the city of Venice.
Perfect. So now that we know the history, the celebrations and the traditions and how to get our hands on a costume and mask, let's talk about what you should eat when you attend the Venice Carnival, and let us know in the comments if you tried some of these before.
Well, eating is an important element of Carnival because I did say it from the beginning. You have to exaggerate because after you'll be facing very, very hard restrictions for religious purposes. So one of the elements of the Venetian Carnival, as well as every carnival event across the country and across Europe, is sweets. This one are typically Venetian. It is a Venetian donut that is served only at Carnival. It's round, yeast risen, deep fried pastry served in a number of different ways, different forms. The dough is normally the plain ones. They're normally with raisins and pine nuts, but you can also fill them with custard or zabaione cream, for example. They are delicious and extremely sweet and rich. But then you also have the next ones that I wanted to show you, Galani. The Galani, now people from Italy would say, no, you don't call it like that. At home, I call them chiacchiere. And I would say, that's why. Because you are from either Milan or Southern Italy. Because these are the same throughout the country, but every place gave a different name, fried and sprinkled with lots of sugar. In Venice, they are called Galani. But as I said, Southern Italy and Milan, we call them chiacchiere. In Rome, they're called frappe. In Tuscany, they're called cenci. Million names, same sweet. Typically, Carnival. That's when I know that the spring is coming, when in the bakeries, these sweets appear. I know that we are heading towards the end of winter. This is a pasticceria, a pastry store in Venice. In Venice, I know that Venice is quite famous for being a very touristy destination, although it is also a place where some old establishments survived, and they are absolutely fascinating to visit, just like museums. Some of the most fascinating are the traditional pastry shops. This one is my favorite one, Rizzardini. During Carnival, I go there to buy what I showed you before, but during the rest of the year, I go there to buy the Venetian biscotti, which is a wonderful delicacy of this part of the world. And then we have to drink something. So we are in Venice and we'll drink the Aperol Spritz, exactly where the Aperol Spritz originated. Actually, I got to tell you the story. Spritz is a Venetian drink. Back in the old days at the market of Rialto, the Spritz was the Austrian name gave to a mix of wine and fizzy water. Why? Because they were contracting from very early morning, and you could get drunk if you started drinking wine at, let's say, 9 o'clock in the morning. So they mixed it with fizzy water. Later on, this mix was refined, and they started mixing. They replaced the fizzy water with Select. which is a bitter aperitif liqueur that is produced and found basically only in Venice. When did we get the Aperol? We got the Aperol from the people from Padua. Padua, Venice region, not far from Venice. Those are the people who added the Aperol. This is probably the most well-known drink around the world. But there is another Venetian drink that I wanted to show you, Bellini. The Bellini was invented between 1934 and 1948 by a man called Giuseppe Cipriani, owner of the Harris Bar, the place where Ernest Hemingway used to hang out. He named the drink Bellini because of a funny story. He once saw a painting by the Venetian painter Giovanni Bellini. And in this painter, there was a saint wearing a toga that had a beautiful shade of pink. So he decided to make a pink drink. But if you look at the ingredients of the drink, it is white peach and Prosecco. So there is no way you can get any pink. So back in those days, they actually added some cherry juice or raspberry juice, just a little drop of it, just to get the perfect pink glow.
Wonderful. All right, Linda, thank you so much for walking us through this wonderful event. Attending the Venice Carnival is now officially on my travel wish list. Now, let's briefly go over some of the tours we currently offer to Venice. Well, we have at around 18 different tours that cover Venice. Let's focus on 6 popular ones. First, we of course have the Rome, Florence, and Venice Carnival tour. This tour is 10 days long and runs from February 16th through the 25th. So you still have time if you want to get on board. You're able to enjoy the carnival in Venice as well as make your own mask in a Venetian mask shop. Next, we have our Venice, Florence, and Rome tour. This extremely popular tour is 12 days long, beginning in Venice and ending in Rome. And some of the highlights include the Roman Colosseum and St. Mark's Basilica. Now, due to its popularity, we launched a Venice, Florence, and Rome tour for solo travelers. This tour is 9 days long, and you get to enjoy a delicious Italian cooking class and visiting several markets and amazing landmarks. Now, we have a shorter version of the Venice, Florence, and Rome tour for those of you who might not have the ability to take so many days off work. This tour is 9 days long and includes notable sites and delicious cuisine, of course. Next up is our grand tour of Italy. This tour has everything. It is 15 days long, beginning in the beautiful Lake Como region and ending in Rome. You will probably be fluent in Italian by the time this trip is over. And lastly, we have the Lake Como, Italian Riviera, and Venice tour. This was actually my first go-ahead tour, and I enjoyed it very much. It felt surreal to be in Lake Como and then be shopping around in Milan. This trip is 11 days long and definitely worth looking into. Now, we will take a few questions from the audience. I know that some of you have been writing them, so I will start with those, but please feel free to write in your questions in the Q&A box on Zoom. And if you're joining us on Facebook, you can write them in the comment box below or next to the video. All right, let's take a look here at some of these pre-submitted ones. All right. Linda, we have a question from Marjorie, and Marjorie is asking, do carnival activities continue into the month of March after the end of carnival, or do they end?
No, the official events end with the official closing of Carnival. But maybe she's referring to the fact that whenever she probably saw pictures of Venice, she saw people wearing a costume. Yes, because it's a very Venetian thing. So in the most touristic areas of the city, you might find people wearing costumes and posing with the tourists. But in reality, the events are limited to the Carnival period. That's what makes it so special.
Perfect. Thank you. Now we have a question from Mickey, and Mickey is wondering, what is the typical temperature there between now and March?
Well, I'm telling you, now it's so unpredictable. I have to say that these days in Italy, it's like spring. So honestly, we are in February and it feels like spring. In reality, you can be quite lucky and have some very sunny days, incredibly sunny days, but you have to consider you're in Northern Italy, and given the humidity, the mornings and the evenings tend to be chillier.
Great. Now, a question from Isabel. Isabel is wondering, is Venetian language very different than Italian?
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of it. When we think of Italian language, very often we don't mention one thing. What we call dialects, it's not a slang. It is actually a language that originates from the history of a certain part of Italy and all the dominations that passed by. So the Venetian language is distinctive of that area. I cannot say I understand everything, me being myself a Southern Italian. I studied the theatrical Venetian, so I can understand that, the old theatrical form, and it is a very fascinating language.
Perfect. Now, the next question is from Anne, and Anne is wondering, in the regata, some boats were decorated with mice or rats. Is there any significance to it?
No, have you ever seen other carnivals around the world where you have the chariots and the chariots carry on them masks as well as allegories, or sometimes also famous people that are mocked in a way? It is the same concept. It just happens on water. So you have a mix of playful and made to wow people.
Perfect. Now, the next question is from Teresa, and Teresa is asking, we're looking to travel in September. Are there any celebrations in Italy we should plan on attending?
Well, September is a month, it's mainly related to agriculture because it is the month of the vintage. Therefore, what we are talking about in that month are events that take place mostly in smaller towns related to a specific product that is famous for that area or related to winemaking and harvest.
Perfect. And then another question from Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie is wondering, is there a parade to show off your costume?
Yeah, in St. Mark. Yeah. Absolutely. There is an official parade.
All right. Let me see. What other questions do we have here? We have a question from Bev. Bev is wondering, with so much water, are there lots of rats in Venice?
Well, yes. But I have to say that what Mother Nature gives you, human beings are able to control and manage in an efficient way. The Venetians are very good at managing their city in a very efficient way. It has existed for centuries after all, and it has pleased the people from all over the world.
Great. And we have a comment from Bonnie on Facebook. Bonnie said, I love the Aperol Spritz. That's all I drank beside wine on my trip in October.
Well, I can understand that. It's a good way to get the illusion that you're not drinking too much.
Exactly. And Felicia is wondering, will these tours be available next year? And the answer is, of course. We run multiple dates and multiple departures for all of our tours. So feel free to take a look at our Italy offerings and select a date that works for you. Now, the next question is from Crystal, and Crystal is wondering, what is the weather like in October and what would be the best thing to see and do?
Where, in Venice?
In Venice.
The weather in October can still be a leftover of summer. So it tends to be mild, although you can always encounter some rainy days. It depends. It also depends what time in October. Towards the end, you're getting closer to the rainy season. What are the things to do? I mean, Venice is is a place where you go at Carnival and you have the Carnival celebrations. You go at the end of summer and you have the film festival. You go in the rest of the year and you have a million exhibitions, and you have the museums of Venice that are a work of art. And now that we're slowly going back to normal, you will have the theater productions back. And Venice has always been a great place for theater experiences. So it really is, it's just a matter of choosing amongst many things to do.
Perfect. Now we have one last question, and they are wondering, do people in Venice speak English?
Yeah. In reality, yes. You have to consider that it's a place that caters a lot of tourists, and therefore English is widely spoken. Maybe with a funny accent, but it's part of the destination.
All right. Thank you so much, Linda. Now, if you enjoyed yourself today, like Linda and I did, please mark your calendars for our upcoming Travel Talk webinars. We have 2 destination spotlights coming up. We have Egypt next week and then Thailand on March 8th. For those of you who are fans of St. Patrick's Day, we have a virtual event celebrating St. Patrick's Day from Ireland on March 15th. And finally, another destination spotlight on Belize on March 29th. You can sign up to any or all of these on our website by going to goaheadtours.com/webinars. We are constantly updating the page with new events, so make sure to keep an eye out for new travel talks and virtual experiences. Linda, thank you so much for taking the time to share your stories and expertise and for answering our questions. I cannot wait to see you in person and share an Aperol Spritz with you when I see you. And to everyone who joined us at home, thank you so much for being here and for participating. We really do hope you enjoyed yourselves. Linda, do you have any parting words for our audience?
Well, first of all, thank you, Claudia, and thank you everybody for listening. And I hope this presentation intrigued you so much that you'll make your way to this part of the world very soon. But if you come to Venice and you're going to be with me, don't be surprised, because I'll be wearing a mask and I'll make you wear a mask.
Exactly. All right, Linda, so good to work with you again. And to everyone watching, have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.